If you're in construction, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Constructive Behaviors Podcast. I'm your host, Barb Allen. I'm a woman with decades of experience in the construction industry, and most of it on the job site. I know how rewarding this industry can be. But like you, I also know that we could improve. Let's work together to make changes from the inside out. Today's guest is Sammy Wallace. Sammy has a bachelor's degree in construction management, another bachelor's degree in technical communication, and a minor in business management. With all of that education, what has Sammy chosen as a career path? Only the best career on the planet, construction job site superintendent. Sammy is actually a senior superintendent after receiving a promotion last month at Clark Construction, one of the largest general contractors in the nation. And I may have forgotten to mention, Sammy is short for Samantha. That's right. Today, you will be listening to not one, but two experienced female superintendents. Let's do this. Welcome to the show, Sammy.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you are too. You are my first female superintendent that I have interviewed for the podcast. And I've been wanting to do this forever. And I'm super excited. Now, so the audience knows, we don't know each other. We met via Zoom about 8 minutes ago. And we connected initially through LinkedIn because I had we have a mutual connection in Liliana, and Liliana had commented on your promotion last month. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to know who this is. Like, I was so excited for you. I mean, let's be honest here. You graduated college in 2015, right? Yeah, I graduated in 1996. So there are 19 years difference between when I started in the industry, headed down the superintendent path, and when you started in it. So I'm super excited to hear how different it's been, because honestly, the year you started in the field after graduating college is the year that I left the field and I went on to the office side of the business. So your entire experience has been since I stepped out of the field. And I'm super excited to hear your take on it. So, all right, let's get started by just talking about your story. So what brought you into construction at all? And when did you start to realize that construction was the career you were going to head into?
I started doing Habitat for Humanity work, volunteering in high school. So freshman year of high school, all through senior year, I did a trip the summer after my senior year. So we traveled from North Carolina, where I'm from, out to Seattle, which actually ended up being where I worked on a construction project 2 years ago for 6.5 months. So it came really full circle, which was fun.
Awesome.
And I spent a week out there with a bunch of folks that I didn't know and got to work on a job site in Seattle, and it really got me hooked. So I went to Milwaukee School of Engineering. My dad and my grandfather also went to Milwaukee School of Engineering. So a lot of people ask how I got there from North Carolina. And I thought I really liked the winter. Turns out I didn't know what winter was, but I made it. And they have a very strong architectural engineering and construction management program. So I started AECM, as we call it, and then I took physics and realized I shouldn't engineer anything, and that was really not my vibe at all. But I really loved working with volunteers on habitat sites and organizing volunteers and figuring out kind of where they're going to work and the schedule and all that stuff. And that really lends itself to the construction management side of the business. So I decided to switch my major to construction management, but I still was interested in communication and marketing and stuff like that. So we take a lot of business classes anyway with a CM degree. And it worked out that I could graduate in 4 years and 2 quarters, so a little short of 5 full years, and get the 2 degrees and the minor.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So
which was
You said you started with Habitat in high school. Did you say what year high school?
Let's see, I graduated in 2010. It was my freshman year of high school that I started working with Habitat, so
Okay.
4
So
years before that.
before your experience with Habitat, what was your thought, if you had any at all, about construction?
My grandfather worked in construction. He's retired now. My great grandfather owned a motor grading company, and so a lot of my grandfather and a lot of my great uncles were involved in that. And so I'd been on construction sites. I had been, on construction equipment, riding around in the bucket of a front end loader when I was a kid, and
Right?
stuff like that. So I I liked it. I didn't necessarily, think of it as a career path
Yeah.
at all. I think I still wanted to be a veterinarian at that point. But again, I took biology, and that turned out to not be my thing either.
You and
So,
I have very many similarities. Biology was not my thing either.
yeah, and I love animals. I grew up riding horses. I really thought I wanted to be a vet, but still kind of in a similar vein, didn't want to sit at a desk. Wanted to, be active and be able to work with people, and so I think it is a little bit in the same mindset of why I kinda thought I wanted to be a veterinarian.
So what did or do your parents do? What were their careers?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, my dad worked in NASCAR. He was
Did you
on the
say
pit crew.
NASCAR?
Yeah,
What?
North Carolina. It's
Oh
very
my
common.
gosh.
Yeah,
So have you been
um
to, I'm sorry, now I'm gonna sidebar. Have you been
we
to a
can,
lot
yeah.
of NASCAR races?
Not a ton, but I did go to the Daytona 500 twice before I was 2.
Uh,
Fun
hopefully
fact.
with
It's one of my fun
headphones,
facts.
right?
It was probably before that
Okay.
time with
Okay,
headphones,
let's not
but I
call your
can hear
parents out
perfectly
on that
fine, it's
right
okay.
now. I will tell you, I am someone who I like to try things. Like I don't know if I'm gonna like it until I try it, right? There are a few things like I've decided bungee jumping is something that's off my list. My body is too old for that kind of trauma. But NASCAR, I never thought I'd like NASCAR, and I remember one time my cousin called me up and said, "Hey, my fiancé is not able to go to the," I wanted to call it a race, the game, right? Like, I'm totally into
Race.
NASCAR.
No,
I
the
have
race,
all the
yeah.
wrong words.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're right.
Here at Kansas Speedway, he's like, "Hey, do you wanna go?" And my first thought was, "Fuck no, like, I don't wanna go." But at the same time, like, "Okay, I haven't done it. Let me go. Like, I wanna go try it." And I went, and it was amazing. I
That's
was
so
like,
fun.
"This is so fun." There were 2 things that I really loved about it. One, well, there were 3. One was that there was no line for the women's bathroom, like 0. The second was I've never been in any place that full of people with that many men that were quiet. It's like they sit there with those headphones on because they're listening to their drivers, and so it's like they're not yelling and screaming, and, like, it's not like a football game. It's like this big outdoor auditorium of men just being quiet. It was the weirdest thing, but I loved listening, like, putting the headphones on and listening to the drivers and, having them talk to their pit crews. And okay, so now circling back. So your dad was on, a pit crew.
Was, yeah, when I was really little, yeah, and then he moved into building engines, so he would take me to the race shop, like, he'd put the pack and play down in the race shop, and, so yeah, grew up in that kind of area, which was
Awesome.
interesting.
So did
Um,
you did you interact with many female drivers?
no, there were
Okay.
no female drivers.
Yeah.
By the time like, my dad got out of NASCAR before, like, Danica Patrick or any of that, and so
Okay.
there yeah, there was none of
Okay, and then your mom?
Yeah, so she works for a company that makes seamless products, so like Spanx and sports bras and tights and socks and stuff like that. So if you've bought a pair of tights from Target in the past 20 years, my mom probably figured out how to import that to get here.
That's
And
amazing.
so, yeah, she manages importing and exporting and tariffs and stuff that I like barely understand. But yeah, that's what she
You're
does, which is very cool. A lot of logistics.
you were raised by a woman who knows how to get things done.
Yes, and
Uh,
she, when I was little, was actually an electronics technician at Sears. And so very male, well, I saw something the other day that wasn't changing the terminology from male dominated to
Male populated.
male populated.
That's a
Yes. So
whole
she was in
conversation I would like to
yes,
have
which
at
I
some
love.
point.
And so I was like, all right, great. So she was in a very male populated field, and which was cool to see. Like, she came home every day in like a Sears work uniform and, greasy hands, and so did my dad. And so it was
Yeah.
very normal in our household to have the like quote unquote dirty jobs. And yeah, but then she obviously, people don't get their VCRs repaired anymore and their vacuum cleaners, they just buy new ones. And
Did
so
you
she
just
had
say
to pivot
VCR?
and went back to school and ended up in, this totally different industry.
Okay, so you made me want to talk about attire for a second. Talking about your mom coming home in, the male type Sears uniform. I know for me, coming up in the industry, I spent the first, let's see, 2010 is really when I started to wear some clothes that kind of looked feminine. But I spent the first 15 years doing everything I could just to look like one of the guys. I'm curious, with you starting in 2015, how, how have you felt about attire, and how have you felt about what you should or shouldn't wear? Do you just not care? Like, I tell me more.
I have a very similar feeling about that.
Okay.
Was on my first construction site when I was 20, so that would have been, let's see, I can't do fast math, but 2012, I guess, would have been my first time on a construction site. And I was the only woman on my whole site. I was an intern, brand new.
Mhm.
And I got pink work boots and pink gloves and pink glasses because I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit. Like,
Okay.
I am a woman and I like to wear pink. But I wore like very loose jeans and like a polo, like definitely feminine, but in a way that wasn't gonna attract negative attention.
Sure.
And I think maybe a year ago started wearing, like, skinnier pants to work. So it took me a very long time. I think just getting that attention because you're a woman or
Mhm.
because someone's attracted to you or something, it feels so icky at work, and as it turned out, that didn't help at all.
Yeah.
Attire made no fucking difference. But it was a little bit of like a safety net for me. It was like a little
Yeah.
bit of armor. Like, I'm gonna wear my baggy Carhartt pants and a button down flannel and look like a boy, but
Yeah.
obviously I did not look like a boy.
Well, and people women are very divided on this topic. And I think, I mean, there are women that are like, "No, wear exactly what you want to wear." But it's it goes back to an episode that I recently released on authenticity, and I just believe that you need to be who you need to be in that moment. Like, if that makes you more comfortable, if that provides that safety net for you, then wear that. If you want to just wear and be exactly who you would be outside of work, and that is appropriate attire for a construction site, then do that. I don't think we should judge each other on what we're comfortable wearing, or how we decide to make ourselves more masculine with our attire, or display our feminism. Quit judging each other on that, right? Just do you and what makes you more comfortable. And it's been an interesting progression. I really wish that through the years I had had the foresight to think, man, I'm going to have a podcast and be doing consulting and stuff later, and would have taken pictures of like me through the years of, here is man, I one of my episodes, Coy McKinney, one of my favorite people I ever worked with, he used to say I look like a 12-year-old boy. Like, in all of our pictures, I always look like a 12-year-old boy. And I did. And I don't look like that anymore, but I wanted
Yeah.
just to blend in, and I always had that kind of younger look. But wait, I have completely derailed this conversation. Okay, so neither of your parents were in construction, but also male dominated, and your grandpa, and your great grandpa had construction businesses. But like me, you just never saw it as like, oh, this is a career I'm going to go into. But you got into it accidentally through Habitat through Humanity. You got your hands on the tools, which a friend of mine, Camille Finan, is like, that's the thing. If women can get their hands on tools and realize what it feels like, it's empowering. And then it makes you want to do and learn more.
And
Um,
I Big thing too is for me, like the reason I love being a superintendent is because I'm solving problems every day.
Mhm.
No 2 days are the same. And you're working with so many different people. Like it's fully a people business. And so it's not like you're sitting and crunching numbers or you're making widgets. Like you're interacting with people all day. And I love that. And
Yep.
I think if more people thought of it like that versus, oh, this is like a dirty thing and you're using a hammer and a nail, like yeah, sometimes I need to do that, but that's nowhere near the majority of my job. And so I think it actually lends itself really well to be something women are good at. And
Yes.
it just amazes me that that just hasn't caught on because it's just been so intimidating of a field to get into.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. Communication is something that in general women tend to be really good at. And one of the things that I loved about being a superintendent and the industry as a whole is that everyone is so different. Their personalities are so different. And this may not be fair to say, but I feel like you walk into um somebody's going to yell at me for saying this, but you walk into an estimating department and I kind of feel like everybody kind of has a similar personality. But in the field, I mean, they are all over the place. And I loved figuring out how to work with each of them individually so that it was a mutually beneficial relationship.
Oh, I love that. It feels like that little win. Like whenever someone like just very typically old school guy that isn't really sure you're supposed to be there and you like crack that nut and get in there and you're the person they call when they need something. Oh, it's just the best feeling.
It is. It absolutely is. I love watching your face as you say that. It's like the my words coming out of your face. Like I know exactly how that felt. So tell me about what is your, and I know it's not an official process, but what is your process? Like I assume that just like you said, there are guys who still come in, you're like, is she really the superintendent? Does she really know what she's doing? What is your unofficial process to get them to come around? What do you do?
The thing that's worked best for me is figuring out what that person needs and getting it for them. Because every trade partner on a job needs something. They need more room. They need somebody out of their way. They need to change how we're going to build something to make it easier for them. And maybe it doesn't really impact the next trade, and it's a good idea. They need someone to listen to them. And once I kind of figure out what that is, then I know I'm going to be able to get what they need. And then when I need something, they're going to be there and be able to do that and be willing to work with me. So that's kind of always my first process, I guess, when I meet someone is what is their motivation? Like what do they need? What are they
Yeah.
not getting from this situation? Like how are they going to be successful and be able to make that happen for them? And then you've got a friend for life.
Yeah, I don't think that I ever put it into those words, but that's really what I was doing as well. It was a, you know what, let them come around as they see that I'm going to take care of what they need. I am going to support them. We are going to do this as a team. And as they start to realize that, oh, when this happens. Like she takes care of it, or she explains it to me, or she resolves the issue in a way that's mutually beneficial. Um, it's like they just start coming around. And that have you found those particular, people to be even more what is the word I'm looking for? More even bigger supporters of you once they do come around?
For sure. It really definitely is because then you'll hear those people later. Because inevitably, I construction workers love to gossip. They love to talk, and
They
inevitably,
do.
someone will be talking about me. It will happen. It will happen on a job site. But my guys will come and tell me, or they will stand up for me in a meeting, or if someone mumbles something under their breath, they'll call them out. And so those are always the people I find that are willing to, stand up and be, my supporter when I need it for sure.
Okay, so that is somewhere I wanted to go in this conversation anyway. So, like I mentioned, the way we connected was when you posted your promotion on LinkedIn. And I went back through and looked at that post that you made, and you had 49 people that commented on that post. I don't know if you know that, but I was looking at
Not
the
counting. Thank you.
numbers. I looked down through all of the comments, and what I loved is that although it may not have been an equal mix of male and females, because women do tend to support women a little more than men supporting women, but there were some men on that actually commented. And granted, there's the easy button where you hit congratulations or whatever, and you can tell who sends those, right? So I went through and I pulled out some names of people that actually made comments that did so in a way that made me feel like they truly support her. So I'm gonna read through some names, and you're gonna tell us, like, I won't read through all of these, but I want you to kind of just say, like, what kind of support has this person given to you? So the first one that I noticed was a guy, and I don't know any of these people. One of the first one was John Sayer. I believe he's a superintendent for Clark. And what I saw with him was not only the congratulations, Sammy, but I think it had multiple exclamation points. And that to me was like, oh no, he's like actually excited for her. Are
Yeah.
you familiar? Is John someone you know well?
Yeah, so we have this thing called Field Development Group at Clark, which is a 3-year training program for superintendents. I like to call it grad school for supers. And it's an internal program that we put on, and John Sayer is in my class of Field Development Group. So we graduated a couple years ago, and we spent a lot of time together. He also lives about a mile from me, so we've got to know each other really well. So that's awesome.
Okay, so John is a peer supporting a peer. Okay. The next one I saw was Richard Rizzo, and I saw on his title it said retired something or other, and I was like, okay, great. This is somebody who has left the industry and is like still super excited about Sammy. So what kind of impact has Richard had for you?
Yeah, he stepped in to the Eisenhower Memorial as our kind of executive VP level person when we were building that job. And he was at Clark at least 30 years, maybe more.
Yep.
And he just always had some sort of story, some sort of, helpful anecdote if you were having an issue. It was great to have around on the job for sure.
That's fantastic. The next one, it was not a Clark employee the way I read it. His name is Dennis Darling, and his comment was, "Way to go, superstar." And I love, like, that's somebody who feels a real connection with you, right? That feels like it's like I'm if Dennis isn't as old as I had in my head, it's his daughter or his sister or someone, like, that's how the comment came across. So how does Dennis's support work for you?
Dennis is also retired from Clark.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yes. So similar to Rich, he was also involved in Eisenhower Memorial. But he's a big golfer, Dennis is. And he used to organize our yearly Clark golf tournament, which I always play in. And he was very close with our Eisenhower team as well. And we'd always have a team in the golf tournament. So I got to know him personally, on the golf course and also professionally. It was really fun.
Okay, I'm gonna digress for a second and then we'll come back. This whole golf thing. So I also chair golf tournaments. I chaired the first one for Jay Dunn and United Way and Jay Dunn down in Houston, Texas, and now I chair the one for NAWIC here in Kansas City. Um, what? How did you get into golf? Why did you get into golf?
Well, my grandparents, not my construction side grandpa, but my other side grandparents, lived at the Villages in Florida. I don't know if you're familiar. It's like the world's largest retirement community or something. You'll just Google it. It's crazy.
I'm not
But
familiar, and I'm not sure if I should be offended that you think I know that right now.
oh,
Like,
it's
I'm
just
not
like
that
everybody I know
old,
is like,
Sammy.
oh yeah, my grandpa lived at the Villages. Like literally everyone's grandparents live there. So I just assumed your
Okay.
grandparents.
Okay, okay. Good save.
But they lived on a golf course. So when I was very little, I had my own set of golf clubs, and I'm left-handed and a woman, so it's hard to just like borrow someone's golf clubs.
Sure.
So I golfed a little when I was young. And then when I, got to Clark, it's like a thing everyone does.
Uh-huh.
And I enjoy it. My husband and I took golf lessons together, and So I really didn't pick it back up until I was working for Clark. But it did, I think a lot of times people feel like, "Oh, I don't know how to golf, so I'm not gonna go," and it feels like
Mhm,
very exclusionary.
mhm.
But I think people did a really good job being like, "You don't have to be good. Just come out and play with us. Let's go
That's
to
right.
Topgolf. Let's go to the driving range." And it was a very, like, fun and welcoming thing, like, we'd play music and obviously drink on the course, and it was just, like, a really fun thing
Yep.
that was really welcoming, which I think probably sometimes it isn't. And so I was very
Yeah.
lucky that that was my experience.
What do you think, what would you say to women who are on the fence about the whole golf thing, right? Like, I don't know how to play, and you're right, you don't have to be good. You just need to go out and try and have a good time. But what can they gain from being on that course for a few hours?
Yeah, it's a time with folks that is you're not in a meeting, it's a little more casual, you're getting to know them on a different level, and it kinda takes a long time, right? Like, playing 18 holes takes a while.
It's
So
for
you're with that
fucking
person
ever.
for a
It's the
while.
longest sport on the face
I
of the
know, it
planet.
truly is. I love playing 9. I don't love playing
Yes,
18, but I will,
9.
but 9 is the sweet spot, let me tell you. But even for some of the younger, women who work with me now, they have been going out just to the driving range, even in the winter, or we have a golf simulator now in our new office that Clark recently moved into,
Oh,
which anybody can use, so that's really fun and accessible because 'cause you're not even out on a course, you're literally just practicing, which is what
yeah.
everyone wants to do, so I definitely encourage folks, just go to the range, find some people that you know that like to golf because some of your friends probably golf and they aren't going to give a shit if you're not good. Honestly, they're not
Well,
going to care. They
something
just want
I
to go drink with you on the golf course.
they do, that they do. The something I never thought about until we just mentioned the 9 holes is maybe women need to find a golf partner that is tag team. Like, I'll play
Yeah,
the first 9 and then
love
tap
that.
out and you come and play the last 9. Like, we could still get that networking and that
Yeah,
mentorship, organic mentorship and stuff that happens on the golf course, and we wouldn't have to be stuck there for all 18 holes. Like,
yeah,
maybe that's something people should start considering is tag team with golf.
that idea.
Okay, so 2 more people that I wanted to mention. One was an executive at Clark, and I think it's one thing for executives to say, "Hey, good job," or "Congrats on your promotion." It's kinda like part of what they're supposed to do as good executives, right? But this guy, Steve Leary was his name. He seemed to have a genuine interest in your promotion. What is the relationship with Steve, and how has he supported you?
Steve is my current construction executive on a job that I'm on, one of a
Okay,
couple jobs I'm working on. So,
okay.
he is my boss right now, and he's great. He is a really good manager, doesn't micromanage, very available whenever you need him, which is great. But we also have had I have a connection with his daughter now also, so she is 9, and Steve was off one day, and we had an issue on the job site, and he called me, and I did not know I was on speakerphone in the car with his wife and daughter.
Oh, no.
And so
Construction
I'm
language needs to be warned.
there, and I don't remember saying anything too harsh or inappropriate, but, something had happened, and I was like, "Alright, this is what happened, this is who's working on it, this, XYZ person's doing this, I've already reached out to another job to see if we can get material, if we can't get it, XYZ," and he's like, "Oh, okay, great, then you just keep doing your thing." I was like, "Alright, good, I'll let you know what happens," hung up, left, and I think that was a Friday, and the next week he came in, he's like, "I just want you to know that my wife and daughter just loved you on the phone." I was like, "What?"
That's awesome.
And I got to meet her, take your child to work day, and, so Charlotte's my little buddy. I'm a season ticket holder for the Washington Spirit, which is the NWSL women's soccer professional team in DC, and,
Oh,
she plays soccer and is big into soccer, so her team has gone to games, and so I've gotten to see them at soccer games and met the rest of the family and stuff. It's really fun. But
that's
she came home
awesome.
today and asked him, she's like, "Daddy, do girls do what you do?" And he was like, "Of course, Sammy is a superintendent on my job site. You'll have to meet her." This was before the phone call
Yeah.
situation. And so she's very curious about, making sure that, women can do all these things and, is asking those questions. So it's fun to kind of show her that we can do whatever we want.
I love that.
Yeah.
You get to be the see it for her to be it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, last name that I'm gonna mention, and I felt like this one, Casey Hoyt. There was something about that just to me felt like it was a peer relationship that's like you're just real supporters of each other, the way the message came across. And I've had some of those in my life, in my career, and it's like those bonds really last forever. Is that what I saw with that?
100%. You
Yeah.
read that completely the right way. Yeah. So I was in Seattle 2 years ago for 6.5 months helping out in the convention center. And Casey was a superintendent on the convention center. And so I got to know him. We have a shared love of the Avett Brothers. If you're familiar with that band, they're from Concord, North Carolina, where I'm from. If you're into folksy Americana rock music, highly recommend. And so we also bonded over these really good bacon scones that we got at the coffee shop next to the office. So we're real like soul siblings, I think, Casey and I. He also has two daughters. He's such a girl dad. I love that so much too. He's the best. And now he lives in Nashville. So I've gotten to visit him in Nashville also. And he was like one of the first people who called me when he heard that I got promoted. I think his exact words were, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
That's fantastic. That's
And he was just
fantastic.
so excited for me. And I mean, he's just like the best. He's one of the in WIN, our Women's Insight Network at Clark is our women's group, and he is an ally liaison for the central region. So he is part of our women's group, super big supporter, like huge feminist. Like, oh, I just love Casey.
Well, you know what so I don't know if you know this or not, but Clark's Win Group was one of the first companies to hire me to come speak to their women's resource group. And when I spoke
Not
to
tell.
what's
I thought
that?
you had spoken to 100 women's resource groups. Honestly.
Well, I
Great.
had been speaking for years before that, but I had never I just recently, a few months before that, started my own business where it was a full-time gig for me. And so that's when companies started hiring me to do those talks. And I gave my one ladder talk to you guys that day. And when I do, so my one ladder talk is really just to let the audience know, it's really about the challenges, the four main challenges that women face as they're climbing the ladder to leadership. And I relate those to broken, missing, slippery, and sticky rungs that women face. And so giving that talk to women is one thing. I mean, women already know, even if they are not able to put names to those challenges, they know they're facing them. So we talk about overcoming them and eliminating them. But every time I speak to a women's group, I always encourage each woman to personally invite one man to attend, because this is a speech that men need to hear as well. They need to understand the challenges that we're facing, because take someone like Casey that we were just talking about. He may be a natural supporter of women, a natural supporter of you, but that doesn't mean he understands everything that you've actually gone through. And when the men hear this speech, they're like, "What? That happens?" And what I was really impressed with Clark was, it was broadcast nationwide. So I don't know who all was on the call, but in the room in Kansas City, there were actually more men that showed up than women. And they were very participatory and had real thoughtful questions once we shut down the public broadcasting across the company. And I was just really impressed with that.
I think that's really indicative of kind of where the industry is going. Like I'm seeing more and more of that, like especially as men are not that they ever didn't want to, I think they just didn't know how to. And we're giving them this, platform, I guess, in this WIN group. They can join as allies, they can, participate in all these activities. And it's really opening their eyes and helping them help us, which is great.
Yep, that's fantastic. Okay, so let's go. So after college, a year after college is when you started with Clark. And what I haven't asked you is at what point, I mean, you talked about when you switched from engineering to construction management. At what point did you decide superintendent is the path? And at that time, what made you think superintendent was the path?
Yeah, I mean, I think my first internship. I worked for a company before I went to Clark PCL Construction. I ended up moving geographically to a different place, so couldn't work for them anymore. And so, found a great home at Clark, which was great. But I interned for PCL for 3 summers before I graduated college, and then worked for them a year after college before I came to Clark. And my very first summer, I had a superintendent, Mike Schaefer, shout out if you hear this podcast. Um, he was just like the best. And he was so supportive. And he walked around site with a cup of coffee and a cigar, not lit, just a cigar in his mouth. And was just like such a commanding presence on the site, but also just so kind. And he would yell at people if he needed to, which wasn't often. People really respected him. He had a really good plan for the job. He taught me a lot, and I was like, "I this is fun." Like running around in this dirt pile. We were building an operation and maintenance facility for the light rail in Minneapolis, and it was an addition to this old Gillette building that is now actually a baseball stadium. It's a very interesting job. And so we were building this shell, but a lot of it was dirt floor, and it was just like so fun to see. We had a wheel truing machine that had to come over from Germany that the light rail trains would go on to make their wheels circular again because they end up oblong as they're like running the light rail eventually.
Hmm.
And so it's just a lot of really different type of materials and different type of equipment, and he really got in the weeds and like knew all that stuff and taught me a ton. And it was fun. It was just so fun to like run around a job site. And I mean, my job for the first month was just count everybody and take pictures. And that's what I did, and I knew everybody on the job site.
That's right.
And all the guys there were, mostly great. I will say some of them not so great, but
Sure.
it is what it is. And really had a team that really supported me and encouraged me to be out in the field and not just like sitting doing admin work at a desk. And I loved it.
Well, and I love that you see the benefit. It sounds like you're somebody who sees the benefits in things, and you were sent out to do counts and to see who was there. And there's so many people, kids that would go into internships and be like, "Ah, I don't want to go do this," right? But you saw what that gave. That gave you an opportunity to meet everyone on site. And as you become more comfortable with people, you feel like you can ask them questions. What is it you're doing? Why are you doing it that way? Like it's creating connections. But once again, I'm going to circle back to women love relationships. Like it's creating those relationships. You didn't just see it as a task to go count employees. You saw it as an opportunity to create relationships. And, looking at your profile on LinkedIn, you did an intern every single summer of your college career, which I don't think is normal. I think you're an overachiever, which is fantastic. I didn't even have the insight to do one every summer. Plus, I didn't stumble upon construction management till I was a junior in college. But so I had one internship. But you and each one I could see when I looked at your profile, you were doing something a little different. You're like, hey, I want to try something different. So I love that you found superintendent your first summer. And even after doing the other things, you're like, nope, that's still what I want to do.
Yep.
So
Yeah, definitely.
what I'd like to talk about now is Clark's program for superintendent. And when I was at J Dunn, so that's where I was at for the 20 years. And um, I don't even know what they call it now, but it was a superintendent trainee program. So I was hired out of college. I was the first female they hired out of college to train to become a job site superintendent. And there was like a process, like this is how they train you to become a superintendent. Um, what is the process that people go through at Clark to get that training to be a superintendent? And is it something that you're supposed to choose when you get out of college? Or is there, a few years before they're like, okay, now you need to decide which path you're going to take?
A few years before
Okay.
you decide, which I think is great. I think very few people come out of college and know that they want to be a PM or a superintendent. But yeah, I'm an overachiever, as you said, so I knew already. But I started in estimating, which we're not really doing anymore for folks right out of college. Granted, I had a year of experience, but most of the time what we do is we start new hires on a job site, whether that's in the field or in more of a PM role or a trade manager role or something. And then after a year, they rotate to either a different role on their job or to a different department. So they are seeing different things before they're then promoted into being a project engineer, learning more about the business, different roles, different places. And then that's kind of where the split happens. So as a project engineer, you can then choose one of two paths, which is assistant superintendent or project manager. And that's where it starts to split at Clark. And there's an opportunity to go to what we call boot camp, which is our intensive training for project engineers. Typically, it's been for PMs. Some folks who end up going superintendent path go. It kind of changes every year of what the grouping is. I went when I was a project engineer, and that really is what we call the project plan, which is just the plan for the job. What's your gross billings? What's your schedule? What's your plan? All this stuff. And so you're going through a real project and creating this plan of how you would build this project and be successful building a project. And then after that, boot camp experience, and you're ready to kind of move on and figure out, then you kind of pick your path. So
Okay.
once you become an assistant superintendent, if you go the field route, you have the opportunity to apply for the field development group. And that's a 3-year intensive training program that I did with John Sayer and a group of other great folks at Clark. And the first year and a half is very specifically technical skills. You're learning constructability. How do you go through a set of drawings and analyze it to see if it can be built? You're doing coordination, specific, classes in MEP and earthwork, in finishes. All superintendents are coming in and teaching these classes. So across the company, the superintendents kind of give back and teach these classes to the new round of supers. And then you do a group project halfway through. So year and a half in, we do this thing called mini camp. Clark loves a camp. And that was a little more like a real camp. We're in Cacapen State Park in West Virginia, and it was so fun. And it's a competition. My team did win the competition.
Of course they did. Did you
And
have a leadership role in the team?
we had a pretty good split of folks, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm a Sagittarius,
Okay.
it's a natural thing.
Okay.
And so when I was in the second grade, my teacher wrote on my report card that my leadership abilities were overwhelming, which was a really nice way of saying I was bossy. So I appreciate it.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask if that was what gender the teacher was?
It was a woman. Yeah, it was a woman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I appreciated she didn't just say I was bossy. I thought that was nice.
Yes, absolutely.
And so anyway, halfway through you do mini camp, you do your group project. It's really fun. The second half is communication skills, leadership skills, time management skills. And those less technical aspects, I hate to call them quote unquote soft skills, because then it feels like they're less important, but arguably more important. And then at the end of that, you do a final project, which is a philanthropic project, or maybe something with our SR&D group, creating a program or something. We ended up doing a Make-A-Wish project for a wheelchair-bound girl who wanted a porch with an overhang, like a roof over it, so she could sit in the shade and watch the kids play in the neighborhood. And we gave her a new wheelchair ramp, and it was amazing. It was an amazing project. And then you graduate FDG with your, cohort of folks that you're probably still very close friends with if you're anything like me. So it was a very fun experience. It was hard. I mean, we had homework, we had classes, once a month, and lots of homework in between, and lots of assignments, and it's intensive. It's like grad school. And they really, want to have superintendents who are trained to be true builders and also leaders of projects, which is what superintendents are at Clark. Some construction companies, the PM kind of more runs the job site, and the job site project really is run by the PM. At Clark, it's the superintendent. The superintendent controls the schedule. The superintendent, we're doing a lot of cost loaded schedules, so even the money is more in the superintendent's hands now than ever before. So that's definitely the way we do at Clark, and we put a lot of emphasis on that training to make sure we have people that are very well prepared to run projects.
What I think your articulation of that program can tell people is, especially anyone who's thinking, man, superintendent could be cool, but I don't know how to do that. The point is you don't have to know how to do it. When you're with the right company, they teach you how to do it. They teach you how to be successful. And too often women hold themselves back because they're like, I don't know how to do that yet. Nobody knows how to be a superintendent until you get that experience and you get that training. And I just think I want people to hear that, right? Like you don't have to know how to be a superintendent to become one. You
Yeah,
have to be willing to learn from the people that have that experience.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you've been on the superintendent track for quite a while. I never thought I would leave the superintendent track. I thought I would do that my entire career. I loved it. Something changed that made me start thinking something different. Um, where are you at right now? Do you think you'll be a superintendent forever? Is there another promotion on the horizon that you're shooting for on the superintendent track, or are you thinking something different?
I have been thinking that a lot.
Yeah.
And I definitely similar to you, I was like, "I just wanna build stuff. I just
Mhm.
wanna be a superintendent, and I'm just gonna be like a curmudgeonly old superintendent, and I'm gonna work at an Ace Hardware when I retire." And I was
Yes,
like,
we
"This is
have
it."
the same thoughts.
Yes. I'm like, "This is perfect." But then as, you know, as I'm moving through my career and getting to manage people more and be I said it as I mentioned, I was in estimating. I never kind of left estimating. I have been bidding and buying the jobs that I've been working on, and have been involved in the pre-construction, side of the business since I left estimating, and it's it's interesting seeing the whole picture, and I
Mhm.
think that is really what's drawing me towards considering, you know, a slightly different career path. Is there expansion opportunity somewhere that they would need someone to run an office?
Yeah,
Well, I need to know all the sides of the business to do that. So, you
that's
know,
right.
I want to be involved in what kind of projects are we choosing? How do we make those decisions? How are, you know, what are our bid strategies? And then what are our build strategies? And how do we do that? How do we close out a job? How do we keep client relationships? Things like that. So I think the whole picture is becoming much more interesting to me than being on one job and building one job, which is very, very fun.
Yeah,
But I've now expanded beyond that. I'm on a couple jobs in construction right now. I've got a job that is starting up early next year. I just helped bid a job that we just won that's going to start mid next year. So questionable
congrats.
what my, you know, involvement in that will be, but it's fun to kind of do everything, and
Yeah,
I'm liking being able to do everything.
that's awesome. I could literally talk to you all day, but I will wrap this up. I have 2 questions for you to wrap up. What would you say to a young woman considering construction?
Would say go see it. Find someone that you know that either go see a habitat job site, do some volunteering, find someone you know that knows someone. Like if I had a friend call me and be like, "Hey, my little sister is in college and she is a freshman and doesn't really know what she wants to do. Can she come hang out with you for a day?" I'd be like,
Yep.
"Yes. When can she be here? Yesterday? That's great." So find someone that knows someone. It's a small world.
Yeah.
Construction is everywhere. Somebody you know probably knows somebody in construction. And we, if you couldn't tell, love talking about what we do. So
Yes.
anyone would be happy to show you a day in their life. And then, you know, you really get a good feel for what it's like and that it's not just, okay, we're going to go shovel some dirt. It's so complicated and interesting and so many problems to solve and relationships to build. And think it's a lot more complex and interesting than people realize.
Um, you mentioned a shovel. That is one tool I never learned to use. I am an idiot with a shovel. Like I can't dig anything to save my life. Um, but talking about reaching out to someone who knows someone or whatever, like the first young woman that ever reached out to me, it was in 2016 and she didn't know me. She didn't know anyone. She found NAWIC online and found me through NAWIC and reached out and was like, "Hey, I'm considering this, but my parents aren't really all about construction. They don't think I should do it. Would you talk to me?" And I'm like, "Talk to you? Are you kidding me? Like, come shadow me for a day. Like, I'll come take you on job sites. We'll walk around." Like, um, And I've maintained that relationship with her for 7 years now. So you don't even have to know someone. You just reach out because just like Sammy said, we want to show you, and if you reach out to someone and they don't want to show you, maybe they're the wrong person, maybe you caught them on the wrong day, try somebody else. But I would say 99 times out of 100, they're going to be like, yes, what do you want to talk about? Yeah, I have a meeting with a young person in 1st of January that I'm excited to meet, that I got a recommendation from a teacher at a high school nearby that was like, hey, I know you do this and I have a student who's interested, but their parents aren't all about it. So that leads me to the second question. What would you say to any parent concerned that their daughter or their child won't be successful in construction because of who they are or what they look like?
Um, it takes all kinds. There's this, thought of a construction worker being this very specific archetype. And that's just really not true. There are like we said earlier, on a job site, every personality you can imagine. At Clark, the people I work with, every personality you can imagine. And construction isn't just boots on the ground. It's also finance, it's legal, it's marketing. There's so many different realms, anything you can think of, it's tech, it's IT, really feeds into being successful in building. And so if you're not the person who loves being on a job site, that's okay.
Yeah.
You could be in estimating. You could be creating new programs in SR&D. You could be in VDC, virtual design and construction, be doing modeling. So there's a lot of opportunity. I also will say AI is not going to build buildings for us. So
not in our lifetime, at least.
Somebody's going to have to do that.
Yeah.
There's people who need to build buildings. And I think we've been talking construction kind of in the go to college, become a manager way, but also in the trades. It's free to be trained. You get paid while you're getting trained.
That's right.
We need those people. I think the average age of a tradesperson in construction is 62 or something. And they're going to retire and we're going to have no one to build buildings. That's right. I think it's important for parents to understand those folks that are moving up through an apprenticeship are making more money than you.
Yes.
Likely. Yes. I don't know what these parents do, but it's not a question of, oh, you're going to be a blue collar worker and you're not going to be successful in life. That's really not it. No. There's a money to be made and problems to solve and people to meet, and it's a lot of fun. And
we are here for it.
All kinds of people to do it.
Yes, and we are some of those people that look like us.
Exactly.
It's been an amazing career, and I am so excited that we're both in it. And I loved this conversation with you. Thank you for taking the time to do this and to get to know you a little better. And I'm hoping that we can have future conversations about things that pop into our heads in the future. So thank you very much.
Definitely. When you make your way out to DC, hit me up.
If you know someone that could benefit from this particular episode, then share it with them. Or if you want to continue to learn about the untapped and underutilized resources that will take your business to the next level, then follow the podcast. You don't want to miss an episode where we discuss what you needed to hear. And lastly, there is a link in the show notes that will allow you to reach out to me directly if you want to accelerate that learning curve. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.